Former President Trump made his first visit to Capitol Hill in over 3 years yesterday. The former president met with Republican House and Senate members, including our next guest, to talk about the state of the Republican Party, taxes, the economy, and much more. Joining us right now with some insight is House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. And, Leader, we have heard from a lot of different people who were at this meeting. Why don't you tell us what you heard, what the priorities were that the former president espoused?
Sure. Good morning. Great to be with you. It was a really upbeat message by President Trump. We talked a lot about the election, what's at stake in November. You know, the president's been talking about some of the same things he's been talking about on the campaign trail, the need to secure our border, how we can lower inflation and keep tax rates low and get the economy back moving again for families who are struggling. You know, he talked about some of the things that he's been seeing on the campaign trail. He's been out to a lot of the swing states, you know, and for those of us that go out to swing districts, we see those same things. The enthusiasm's really high, but there's a lot of concern. I mean, just yesterday morning, and President Trump touched on this, you had a Russian ship right off the coast of Florida. You know, the world is an incredibly dangerous place, and President Biden has not met the challenge. A lot of our friends around the world are in worse positions today. Israel, clearly, Ukraine, you look at Taiwan. So, you know, we talked about all of those things, foreign policy, domestic policy, what we need to do to win in November so we can turn it around starting next January.
For our audience, a lot of focus on taxes and what that might mean. And not only in the meetings with Republican leaders yesterday, also in his meeting with the BRT CEOs, Business Roundtable CEOs, he brought up ideas about lowering the corporate tax rate to 20% from the existing 21%. Also talked about not taxing any tips as income, you know, leaving that to go. And that's something he had mentioned last week at a rally, too. Obviously, he would need congressional support to get those initiatives passed. Is that something you support? Is that something the majority of people in the room yesterday would support?
Yes. And, you know, we've been having some early talks already about, you know, these big cliffs that are coming next year because of budget reconciliation. A lot of the tax cuts that we're able to put in place under President Trump in 2017 are on the table again. President Biden has made it clear he wants to raise those tax rates, which means, you know, if you raise the corporate rate, for example, to 35–40%, which President Biden's talked about, that hits families, that hits small businesses. What President Trump wants to do, you know, and he wanted to go down to around 15% when we were lowering rates last time. There's limits in what budget reconciliation allows you to do, and we ultimately ended up at 21%. Which made America incredibly competitive. We were at 35. The world average was 23. We went down to 21, and we got our economy moving again. You saw the president, as you touched on, when he was in Nevada recently, talk about getting rid of the taxes on tips. I think a lot of people recognize, you know, do all tip wages really get reported anyway? Can we address that? That's something we're looking at. And I think that would be something that would also help the economy. It would surely help a lot of people who work in the service industry to have more cash in their pockets, and that's going to help them.
I don't understand why tip income would be different than W-2 income. Somebody who's maybe a blue-collar worker getting all their money on W-2, to say to them, you've got to pay all of your money that you get, all of your income and taxes, but tips, those, granted, sometimes it's hard to track, but I think part of the problem, right, if you talk to anybody in the service industry, is that it's gotten much easier because people pay their tips on credit cards now. All of that is tracked through the restaurant or beyond. It's not as fluid of an economy as it used to be when, you know, way back when, where a lot of that was just money that was left. And I think that's been some of the pushback. If you're given something on Venmo, they track that now, too.
Right. Well, and if you think about a tip worker, they're getting hit on both sides. They are getting W-2s, and so they're paying taxes on W-2. Plus,
they only get W-2 for the you only get W-2 for the income that you make, and it's below minimum wage. It's below minimum wage that they're often paid.
For some,
maybe $5 an hour, and you make up for it in tips.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you have, let's say, two sets of accounts you need to keep as a worker, and one is partially tracked through whether it's Venmo or credit cards, and the other is through cash. At the end of the day, it's one of the items that is being put on the table. There are a lot of other good ideas, too. And as you mentioned, President Trump talked about lowering the corporate rate even more. And that helps families, by the way. You've got a big debate on that. And that's going to be a big debate in the presidential election. We have a debate coming up in 2 weeks between Joe Biden and President Trump. Joe Biden wants to raise those rates. And then he's going to try to tell you, if you're making less than $400,000 a year, that it won't affect you. Of course it will affect you. It'll especially affect those lower income workers. It's really hit families harder when you think about his energy taxes. That hits people making $30,000, $40,000 a year. So if we lower tax rates for everybody, when we did it in 2017, it got our economy moving like we'd never seen before. Let's keep America competitive. Let's bring more jobs back to this country and put the focus on creating jobs in America and not how to sick a new army of thousands of IRS agents on people in America.
Leader Scalise, I hear you. Nobody likes paying taxes, me included. But if you lower the numbers that you're bringing in, if you're lowering the tax rates, it definitely boosts the economy. That's a clear argument to link to it. The problem becomes that you don't make back all the revenue. Maybe you make 10 to 20% of the revenue back. So the question becomes, how do you pay for that? You can grow the economy, you can bring up the revenue numbers, but not make back everything you would have made with higher rates. How do you account for that? Because we have not heard a lot of plans for cutting spending. Where do you do that? Where do you find the money?
Yeah, well, and we did that last time in budget reconciliation. Again, that process requires you to actually pay for it. You know, and a lot of people up here in Washington don't like remembering the facts of history. When we cut those tax rates from 35 down to 21%, the federal government the next year took in more money than it's ever taken in its history. We cut taxes. The federal government took in more money. We still have other problems within our budget. One of the things we can do to help pay for it is to get rid of some of the radical regulations that are adding cost to families. It also adds cost to government. When you have all these rules and regulations coming out of every federal agency, that's being looked at. Reducing the size of the federal workforce, that's something we've looked at in the House. When you look at the massive explosion, especially since COVID, in some of these agencies, they jacked a lot of these agencies up. Many of these workers aren't even showing up for work anymore. There's been a report that over 70% of the federal workforce are still working remotely, and that work isn't even getting done. Passports, for example, biggest calls members of Congress get right now are things like passports not getting processed, IRS checks not getting returned to people after 2 years because people aren't showing up to work in those agencies. And so if we reduce the size of those workforces, that saves billions and billions of dollars that you can use to put more money in the pockets of families and get the economy moving again.